Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We'll be talking about the national security policy for the first time in the history of Pakistan, and the fact that, of course, it's now being linked to economy, the multi-pronged strategy for the future to ensure the protection for its citizens, which the Prime Minister talked about. He spoke about it in some length. We'll be talking about what it means for the future as far as our regional security is concerned, also as far as economic security of Pakistan is concerned, and how does it concern the average citizen particularly. All of that today on Perspective. I have with me Brigadier retired Shahid JAGIR, who is a senior analyst. Thank you for being with us today. Lieutenant General retired RAZA Khan Mohammed, who's a defense analyst. Thank you for joining us today. And Dr. JAMIL Khan, who's a former ambassador. Thank you for being with us. Brigadier Sahab, overall, of course, it's the first time in the history of Pakistan that we've seen this kind of a national security policy being promulgated. Overall, certainly a lot has been said about it. A lot has been said about the fact that it was certainly needed, and it was high time that there was, there is such a document now that can be followed. Overall, can you tell us a little bit about how you see the impact for Pakistan regionally and also particularly in Pakistan?
Thank you very much for inviting me. I think it's a very good omen and a very good document which has been prepared by the present government. The national security vision, they need to be complemented, that they have compiled all the relevant details of national security and the part which has been played by organs. It is a very wholesome document. I'm talking of the document which has been released publicly for the public. It gives a clear view that how Pakistan would be seeing the internal dynamics and external dynamics of the geopolitics of the world, the geoeconomics of the world, and what part it has to play. Now, is also redefines duties and responsibilities of the undercommands, which have to play a vital role in implementation of this. But the challenge which is important for Pakistan is that now we have to see the government side, where they have made a very fine document, how they implement this policy into the strategies of the different of the country, and then how these strategies are made and implemented at a tactical level, so that its essence of making this policy is as described, the citizen-centric, that all the benefit is passed to the citizens. That is a very important thing. But overall, I think this is a very good start, and 21st century, the nations.
Brigadier Sahab, I'll just come back to you. I'm going to go to Lieutenant General retired RAZA Khan Mohammed. General Sahab, overall, there is, of course, Brigadier Sahab also talked about a citizen-centric approach, which has been said again and again. What does it really mean? Of course, when you talk about the security policy and the fact that it has to be in line with our economic strategy also, overall, what does it mean when the Prime Minister says this, or when this is being said again and again, that it has to be citizen-centric, it has to focus on the needs of citizens also? How would you explain that?
Directed to me.
General Sahab, can you hear me?
All right. Now I can hear you very well. Any external policy, any geoeconomic policy, or any policy which revolves around the betterment of any country, it depends on the strength within the country. You know, you are as strong externally as you are strong in your own country. So, and that's only possible if you are citizen centric. That's only
Okay.
possible if your people are satisfied and they feel themselves to be a stakeholder in the overall governmental or the state the governance. So and then constitution also it gives demonstrates the in its article 38 that citizens welfare, and that is what has also been mentioned in this policy, where they have also mentioned about the fundamental right, like the first chapter there about 25 the articles in that. So first time this vision which has been drawn, I would call it a vision at this time, which has been drawn as a security policy of national security policy of the country, and they have also mentioned that they are going to give a complete framework of its implementation, and that's what I would commend. Once the framework is really whatever the points of the framework is shared with the public, and I guess any
Okay,
kind
let me
of
come
a
back to you.
framework
Jamil Saab, let me come back to you. I think General Raza is back online. General Saab, I think Dr. Jamil raises a fair point when he says that they are going to give a policy framework. They are going to give us, going to go into the particulars of this. Where do you think, what are some of the particulars you feel we need to access? What are some of the areas we feel, particularly as far as policy is concerned? Of course, to make it more citizen friendly, to make it more, citizen centric. Again, I guess that's a word that is coming up again and again. Ji.
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, I think this national security policy is historic in the sense that this is probably the only national policy which has been formulated after consensus, and it is available in written form to the people of Pakistan, to the government of Pakistan, and particularly to all those who were waiting and seeking the government of Pakistan's directions on the matters of economic security of Pakistan, on the matters of defense policy, on internal security, on the national action plan, on human securities, and a number of other aspects. And I think the challenges and opportunities of all these domains, which I just described, they are briefly but accurately and very clearly stated in this policy. And I think now the second phase of this is going to be the implementation, for which I think more work will be needed by out of the 27 ministries of the government of Pakistan, particularly by 3 or 4 of them. First is the Ministry of Defense, the second is the Ministry of Interior, and of course the Ministry of Finance, and a few others. They will have to sit together and work out coordinated doctrine and strategy to take forward this vision and this policy of the government of Pakistan. Also, I think it has very clearly been stated that this policy is dynamic in nature. It is not static. And I think depending on the international and regional milieu and the national environment.
Have to be reviewed from time to time, keeping in mind the regional situation, keeping in mind our relations with the countries in the region, all of those things, right?
This will be continuously updated and revised. And I think probably there are very few countries in the world who have this kind of a policy framework and document, and one is the United States. Even in the UK, I think they are more defense policy centric rather than national security policy centric. India has no national security policy, and we are aware that the only, national security document there is the Dover Doctrine, which is actually destroying India. I think my comments and compliments to the government and to the National Security Directorate and all those who were involved in this. And I think it's a great beginning. And
right,
I'm sure this is going to...
General Sahab, let me come back to you. I'm going to go to Brigadier Shahid Jahangir. Brigadier Sahib, do you agree? Of course, it is one of course, it is one such document, hasn't been done before. All of those things are true. But in terms of, can you take us through some of the areas you feel, certainly it needed, as far as the way that it clubs together issues of national security, economy, all of those things was perhaps needed for a long time now. And do you think that in a sense it gives, of course, a ground, it lays the groundwork for any government that now, after this, whether it is a PTI government, any other political party, to now have some sort of a groundwork from where they can continue. So in a sense, it lays a foundation, right?
Absolutely. I will pick up from your last word.
Ji.
This is the document which is the basic framework. And once a drawing for the constitution is made, and a way forward is described by the leaders of the country or the leading institutions of the country, then it is very easy for the ministries and bureaucrats and others that how they have to navigate within the parameters set by the government. So this document has laid the basics for the national security of Pakistan. Now, we have to, all those who are involved in this, all the organs of the national security have to now stand up and work within the parameters set in this document. Although this is a public document, there is a secret portion of this which will be known only to the people concerned. But as my colleagues have said, this is a very good start. But as I said before, now implementing this policy without the political, without the political harmony will be desired. One. Second, that how the strategies are made to achieve the desired end state. Unless the strategies at the ministries level are made, which are implemented into the tactical plans, we will be, we will be not harmonying all these. So this policy brings under to its umbrella or the organs of the nation state which are working for the welfare of the country.
I want to come back and talk about the challenges of implementation that you've mentioned in terms of political harmony and also strategies that have to come then from ministries, all of that after a short break. Welcome back. We've been talking about the challenges of implementing the national security policy. Shahid Saab was earlier, Brigadier Shahid was talking about that, and also the fact that it needed political harmony. and of course strategies that have to then come from different ministries. General Raza, do you agree? I mean, of course, this is a great document. It's a huge step in the right direction. It's a starting, it's a foundation. But from then on, of course, we need a lot more groundwork that needs to be done in terms of implementation, right? I don't think General Saab, Brigadier Saab, can you hear me? Please, let's continue on the issues of implementation we were talking about in terms of the policy itself.
Well, as I earlier said that this is a good document, policy. Policy has to be now transformed once we make out of the national interest we want to achieve. You then make the strategies, and these strategies are then transformed into tactical actions to achieve the desired end state. Now, formation of a policy, writing of a document is a cumbersome effort where you combine all the organs of the state, that what part they have to play. And then they have to, you give a broad outreach to all the organs of the state, that what they have, but within that, they have to make the strategies to be specific and make the action plans so that these are implemented down to the grassroots level. And that is where the real challenge comes. As you see, Pakistan in the next 2 to 4 years, but the challenges which when we read these this document and the challenges we see which are going to be confronted, first of all, is the political stability. Now, national security policy, whenever is made, it is made above the political debate. Now, political stability is one of the organs of the national security. But I'm sure our political leaders will show this much of maturity and leadership that they will take the guideline from this broad document, and they will move the country ahead. The second, as much talked about, is the economic stability. I'm not an economist, but that is the very, I say, the core challenge the country is facing at the moment. And we have to take the concrete measures, tighten our belt at every level, down to individual of the country. And also, the difference between the have and have not has to be eliminated by a fair justice and law and order system, so that everyone behaves according to the law. Unfortunately, in our country, there is a problem of law different for different segments of the society. That is the biggest challenge we will face. And that is the media, which is the fourth pillar of state now. It has to play a very, very vital, important role, especially private media, has to feel the importance they have in Pakistani society. They have to understand and implement the essentials of the media, in which the first essential is depiction of the fact. The Fifth Generation War main tool is to read the wrong information, distract the people. To create.
Let me come back to you. General Saab, Brigadier Saab is talking about challenges. I hope that you were here when he was talking about the challenges of implementation. He also talked about the role of media. Do you agree that, of course, that in terms of a fourth pillar of state, all of those things, certainly media has a role to play. But overall, in terms of integration also, we need, whatever government there is, we've been talking about for a while now, that there should be issues which are above politics, as party politics, so to speak. And this national security policy certainly seems to be one of those which lays a foundation, a groundwork for every government to then follow. So there can be some consistency in all the policies. There can also be integration. There can also, so that there is a certain direction which is what I think this government intended for the country to take, right?
Yeah. Okay. So, we are talking of media security as well. We are aware, that there is this mind games and media wars going in against Pakistan's security, Pakistan's welfare, even against, Pakistan's economy by India and, a few others. And therefore, this aspect, it finds a mention very prominently in this document. It also talks of the hybrid war that is being launched continuously against us. And it talks of cyber security. And of course, now the implementation of this aspect would need extra attention. And I think the Ministry of Information, our media houses, all of them, not only the government, but the private media houses, I think they will have to come up and devise plans and doctrine to support this policy. Also, I think previously I heard something about the political ownership of this document. Okay. And let me state it very clearly, that the two committees, the National Assembly Committee on Defense and the Senate Committee on Defense, I think all this information has been provided to them. There is yet a third committee, which is the National Security Committee of the Parliament, which actually comprises senior party position holders from both these committees. And they have also been informally briefed. But I think the formulation of this policy is not the job of the Parliament. It is the job of the Cabinet and the existing government. They have done that job. With the flexibility left, for any suggestions from the political leaderships or the political parties to forward to the government for further refining and improving this policy. And thereafter, I think the political ownership of this policy would come into being, and that again will be a very important step.
Right. Let me come back to you. I'm going to go to Dr. Jamil. Dr. Jamil, I think that Denel Saab raises a very important point when he talks about political ownership, which has to come across the board from all political parties. In the kind of scenario that we have at this time, do you see that happening? Do you think that there will be that kind of political ownership? Certainly it is needed for implementation. Otherwise, of course, we cannot have the kind of goals, we cannot have it translate into the kind of goals that the policy itself envisages.
You see, like many stakeholders and many components of this policy, national security policy, media is one component of it. And obviously, with the help of media, you are able to bring the awareness and you are able to have the cohesiveness which has been mentioned in this policy. But before I just dilate upon it a little more, this policy, has to be discussed in with two different angles. One is its vision, and now we are talking about the implementation. So basically vision, and then we draw the goal, and then we start discussing about the implementation. The government has already indicated that in coming decades. Let me just finish it. Let me finish it because I had to really dilate upon this point. Your viewer definitely need and I need to listen to this. So basically, the implementation part is only done with the feasibility. Each point which has been enunciated in this policy needs a complete feasibility and the price tag. Now, that's the reason the government has already indicated that it will, in coming decades, we'll be able to fulfill this. And since it's a dynamic document, we'll keep improving it and keep. This addresses, as it has been said, in the policy multi-pronged, and its attainment can only be done if we have the multi-dimensional approach, multi-faceted approach, and if we only through that, and plus what I said, and then it has a traditional and it has indicated about the threats what we have, which is the traditional and non-traditional. And General Saab has just pointed out about the hybrid war, and that is the indication of the non-traditional, because in the year 25, in this 21st century, we have a different dimensions of the threat. So they are, as a matter of fact, putting together all these points to basically have the fulfillment of our vital national interest, and that is what has
Right.
been already indicated. First
Right.
time in such a policy, they have incorporated economic diplomacy, and they have linked this economic diplomacy and economic vision to supplement the geostrategic aims and objectives of our country with a sustainable economic growth. So
Okay.
definitely, the plan and the vision, there is no doubt, is this was needed. This is very comprehensive. Then, what they have said, without human security, without the satisfaction, what you are mentioning about the media, and with the media, we bring on board the people at large, and we bring welfare, we bring prosperity for the people, and that's what the human security is. We ensure that the Constitution of Pakistan, whatever guarantees are given, made education, health, security, all these things are provided to our people, and that is the human security they have mentioned in it, and that's the holistic approach what they have mentioned in
Right.
this. They are
Right.
trying to optimize. They are trying to optimize all these factors, and that's why all these departments and ministries would be, and they have been consulted at the time of implementation also.
Right.
Challenges definitely are there. We had National
Yeah.
Action
Okay.
Plan. We had
Ji.
challenges. All that component which was to be done by the armed forces, that almost was done. The remaining component, because of the coordination, because of the resources, because of the finances, the other components, more than about 10 points, 15 points have not been implemented. So in this case as well, the framework which they are trying, I'm sure in 8 different sections they have mentioned about what they need to do. And that
Right.
is started with
But
the
in terms of
formulation, and that
feasibility, let me come back to you, Brigadier Sahab. In terms of feasibility, of course, which would include a price tag also. Certainly, a lot of work still remains to be done to further the goals in terms of what the policy envisages. Again, I would say. And that work has to come, like you said, it has to come from different ministries, it has to come from different departments, all of them working in cohesion to achieve what the policy envisages, the policy guidelines that it lays down. And of course, the relevance of the geostrategic position, the changing of the geostrategic position, our relationship with our geostrategic partners. Now at this time, of course, Afghanistan is a huge issue. We also have a hostile neighbor in terms of what our relationship with India. All of those things will then determine how things move forward, right?
Yes, you are right. Just to make it a little simple, I would just give you an example that there is one intention is one thing, and the capability is another. When your intentions and capabilities are combined, then you can achieve your goal. Now, this document is the intentions, that what can we do and what we want to achieve.
Okay.
The other thing is the resources. That is why I say that this challenge it will be making the strategy to make this policy achieved by all the ministries within the resources and capabilities that the Pakistan has. But it does not mean that with the bigger resources that we have, with the economic challenges we are facing at the moment, we cannot achieve these policies. We can definitely achieve. It is always the will part which overcomes the paucity of resources, and not the resources which overcome the will part. So I would say that it is very important that we must make the right strategies at every level, at every organ, how it has to move, how it has to contribute towards the achievement of the national goal within the parameters set in this security policy. Unless
Right.
they will work uh, for the achievement of goal policy is set in this document, it is not possible to
Right.
achieve
It's not
the
right.
end state which this policy needs.
Right. Let me come back to you, General Sir. In terms of, I want to come to. Of course, we've been talking about the fact that it has to be, a decision as in terms of it largely apolitical. One would say, as far as all political parties are concerned, they have to be taken on board. They have to have, the right as far as to further the vision in the policy itself. We need there to be an input from all political parties. In the current kind of scenario that we have at this time, unfortunately, we don't see a great relationship between the opposition and the government. Do you think that, to further this goal in the national interest, we can have that kind of, an overture from the government and a response from the opposition?
Yes, I think that will be essential, and I think it will be forthcoming. But let me state it very clearly that as far as the national security of Pakistan is concerned, I think across the political divide, that there is consensus on that, and we have seen this in the past. The post-Pulwama attacks, by India and a number of, on the another occasions, the people of Pakistan, the government of Pakistan, the opposition, I think they were all united when it came to the security of Pakistan, and I think that kind of attitude will prevail in Pakistan. When it comes to some political differences, amongst the various factions or parties, I think they are there in all democracies of the world, including Pakistan. I'd also like to add, that the issue of balancing, the ways and means for the implementation will be an important step. And I think when it comes to formulating the budget, for supporting various policies, then that will be the crucial moment. And I think whatever guidelines have been laid in this policy, I think they will have to be budgeted accordingly. Where, will the cuts be made? That again will have to be a very important decision and endeavor by the government of Pakistan to make sure that this people-centric national security policy, which emphasizes the security of every citizen of Pakistan, whether it is his economic security, whether it is his health security, or whether it is his job security. I think those aspects will have to be considered. For instance, budget on education may have to be increased. Budget on health spending may have to be increased, and so on and so forth. So I think when this document is put in the implementation stage, then at the time of budgeting, I think the implementation would be manifested and it will be visible to the people of Pakistan. And I think it is then that the people will realize that this document is actually fundamental to their prosperity and security.
Right. Ji, Jamil Saab, in terms of budgeting, the challenges that General Saab is talking about, the fact that of course, it would mean certain increases, it would mean certain deductions in terms of, the government spending, all of those things. How do you see the government dealing with those challenges? We are, of course, also in the midst of, certainly there are economic challenges for the government at this time. The Prime Minister has admitted that. So, in terms of the kind of scenario that we have at this time, for us to implement the policy, those are also issues that, can prove challenging, no?
Well, that is embedded in the policy, and in policy it says that the sustainable economic growth and increase in resources, and then resources are to be increased. There is no two opinion about it. But pending that, we can't really just sit idle and do nothing. Of course, we have to reprioritize. We have to reprioritize our fiscal policy also in the forthcoming budget, and some of it should be catered for the short term implementation of it, and of course medium and long term can be taken care of later on. And again, in the same policy, they have very clearly and candidly
but doesn't
dictated
the
that
document itself envisage continuity? You know, regardless of whichever government there is, there has to be the continuity. The continuity factor is very important for there to be, like you said, sustainable growth is very much embedded in the document, and for there to be, for us to achieve those goals, we need to continue on that same path. There is no two ways on that, right?
this is basically a policy of the state now. And this policy of the state, I am sure that all future governments coming in, it's a dynamic document. It would be, it would go through its evolutions, but it's not going to be dumped like that. Number one, and number two, the basic, one of the very clear point and a very cardinal point in this is the regional and global situation. Now we have to really keep aligning ourselves and this policy also with the impact of the external relations what we have because of the regional and trans-regional situation what we are having these days. And that would automatically have its impact on the internal security as well as the societal harmony what we were talking about, how the political parties would really take it. So it's already given how to really create and generate the societal harmony. And I'm sure that the concerned factions were consulted, and at some stage it should also be discussed, or it should be the entire parliament should be taken into confidence at that stage. And in the 8th section which has been mentioned in the same policy, addresses most of these points, may it be the economy, future economy, may it be the territorial integrity, may it be the internal security, may it be the terrorism, and of course the foreign policy challenges, human security, all these things, and of course the vulnerability and the vulnerable people, the giving some relief to the vulnerable people of Pakistan, which is also covered. That thing is also covered in the Constitution of Pakistan, Article 38. So I think it's very comprehensive, and the implementation part, they are going to have it, short term, medium term, and long term. I at least don't have any doubt about it. There is no way out. We have to really go for it.
Ji, Brigadier Sahab, do you agree? You think that, you know, as far as implementation is concerned, like Dr. Jamil is saying, things are quite sorted and, you know, there are no two ways about it? Or do you think that, you know, a lot of work needs to be done to get this, you know, to actually, as far as the policy guidelines, of course, it offers policy guidelines, of course, it lays down general criteria, of course, it lays down different areas that we need to work towards, different goals that we need to work towards, but it also, there's a lot that needs to be filled out. Do you agree with that?
I think the policy guidelines have been laid out as far as the national security of the country is concerned, and all the segment of the national security, all the stands of the national security will now come forward and taking lead from this security policy. They will play their part in the best interest of the country. As General Raza has said, that although we have the economic, the budget, for example, has to be, you know, law in line with the policy goals, economic policy goals, and similarly the other things, the terrorism, human security, health. Unless all these things are aligned with the national security policy, the end result will be distorted. But once they are aligned in the broader framework of national security, I think we will be heading toward the right direction, and inshallah, Pakistan will progress in the future.
Right. General Sahab, you know, like topics like there's accountability, curriculum review, governance challenges, all of, you know, 18th Constitution Amendment, all of those things also are, you know, part of the classified portion within the security policy. Of course, these are sacred topics in any country. But overall, do you think that the policy, how far do you think the policy talks about accountability, for example, which is a huge part of this government's own agenda, reform also?
I think the aspects that you mentioned may actually be not part of the classified portions of the national security document. These are actually ongoing processes, political processes, democratic processes, and I think like every democracy, there will be differences, amongst various political parties. And what does democracy mean? It is actually the rule of the majority. And the opinion of the majority, I think, will have to be respected by the minority. But that does not mean, that decision making in a democracy should be actually forced through the people who are in the minority. I think the best course of action for the national security of Pakistan would be that most decisions are taken through consensus. But where consensus cannot be achieved, then I think the rule of majority, I think, would stand. And I think everyone else should respect that. And if that is done, I think some of these challenges to our democracies would also be resolved.
General Sir, do you think that it is, it also empowers the parliament in a sense, because of course, you talk about the majority, you talk about the fact, and of course it talks about democracy also. Do you think it empowers the parliament more when you look at the whole policy guidelines overall also?
Yes, I think, look, the parliament job is to make laws, whether it is the Senate or whether it is the National Assembly. I'm talking of the parliamentary democracy in the subcontinental context. I'm not talking of the French democracy where every, major government decision is taken to the parliament for its approval.
Okay.
Here we have a different system. I think here the decisions are taken by the cabinet. And those decisions are taken, after a lot of considerations, and I think they are taken in the best national interest of Pakistan. And if the parliament wants, to make certain new laws, so that, they are related to the national security of Pakistan or to any other policy of Pakistan, then they are actually at liberty to do that, and therefore they will be welcomed by everyone.
Right. Dr. Jamil, your comments, unfortunately we're running out of time, overall about the policy, overall how you see the future of the policy in terms of implementation, what the direction that it will set, inshallah, for the future of Pakistan.
Except the impediment which I see in it is the budgetary impediment, and then that could be overridden by the policy what they have enunciated, with the points which they have enunciated in this policy of enhancing our resources, pending which, as I was saying, that we have to reprioritize, and through reprioritizing we would be able to start implementing some of these points across the board. Consultation is of course needed, and at the cabinet level, fine enough, it has been done, but then the parliamentarian committees, they were taken into confidence. In fact, the National Action Plan, the way it was really across the board, whether it was opposition, whether they were in parliament, whether even some of the politicians who were not represented in parliament as much, they were consulted. And then National Action Plan is still owned by everyone. And this national security policy should be owned by everyone. And if there are some criticism which I'm seeing since yesterday, I think that can be ironed out by reaching out to them. There is no harm by reaching out to them. And subsequently, once it comes to budgeting and tagging with the price, then the parliament would pass the bill in the next budget. And they are the one. They are going to allocate resources for most of the implementing plans of it. In the overall context, I think all the departments have been taken, their consultation has been taken, and at the time of implementation, they have that much of leeway and that much of provision of the budget that they can at least start it at and put the things in the motion, particularly those which are very critical and very essential in terms of our policy. I must say that this policy was definitely required. Fine enough, at this point it is vision, but we would be hoping for its implementation. And the time limit, there is no time limit for it, and we have to really keep adjusting and keep implementing in view of the threats which we'll keep encountering in the future, and the threats which are available, which we are
from
encountering now or confronting now. Yeah.
Right. General Sahab, you know, in terms of challenges, of course, it aims for political integration, it looks at political stability, and of course, like Jamil Sahab is saying, there are issues that will need clarification. You know, there are challenges like budgetary challenges. Your comments before we close. General Sahab? Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being with us, Brigadier Shahid Jahangir Saab. Thank you for joining us. Lieutenant General Raza Khan Mohammed, thank you for being with us today. Dr. Jamil Khan, thank you for making the time. Certainly, as far as the national security policy is concerned, it's a holistic document. It certainly sets forth the direction and also integrates issues of security, economy, all the issues that have from time to time needed integration for a long time now. It's certainly a huge step, certainly a monumental step for the government to take it at this time. Of course, challenges, budgetary challenges, issues of implementation that we discussed still remain for the government to iron out, and of course one hopes that as in the next couple of months, over time, of course, as things emerge, change, those issues will again be re-evaluated and ironed out. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.